Morobe Province is a province on the northern coast of Papua New Guinea. The provincial capital and largest city is Lae. The province covers 33,705 square kilometers, with a population of 674,810, and since the division of Southern Highlands Province in May 2012, it is the most populous province. It includes the Huon Peninsula, the Markham River and Delta, and coastal territories along the Huon Gulf. The province has 9 administrative districts, and 101 languages are spoken, including Katanyabam, English and Tok Pisin are common languages in the urban areas, and in some areas forms of Pidgin German are mixed with the native language. History. Nomenclature. The Morobe Province takes its name from former German administration center of Morobe 7.759098 s. 147.594040 W southeast of the Lae. Under German administration, Morobe was named Adolfshafen = port, and was an outpost of the Deutsche Neue Guinea Company era. It was located close to the border of British New Guinea. Brief history. While there have been various attempts to examine the history of Morobe Province, the works of Ian Willis and Philip Holtznecht can be summarized below. 1793 Antoine Bruni d'Entrecasteaux sailed up Tail of New Guinea into the Gulf he named Tunda Kermadec. 1856 Italian Catholic priests arrived at Mandoc Island, Siassi, before being forced to leave by disease. 1874 John Moresby on HMS Basilisk sails along Huon Gulf and names Parsi Point, the Markham, Rawlinson Ranges, and explores around the Markham mouth. 1884 Otto Finch on Samoa explores New Guinea under Deutsche Neue Guinea Company and selects Finschhafen as a best site for company settlement. In the same year, northeast New Guinea and offshore islands was claimed by Germany, while Britain claimed southeast New Guinea. 1886 Georg von Schliens, a New Guinea company representative, arrives in Finschhafen to set up settlement on Madang Island. He undertakes exploration along the coast and name areas with prominent German names. He states that one day the Markham mouth will become an important port for trade. Martin Dreger explores the Huon Gulf on Samoa and travels upstream on the Markham and saw villages who were willing to trade for iron. During the same year, Lutheran missionary Johann Fiel arrives in Simbang. 1887 The Deutsche Neue Guinea Company abandons Finschhafen because of malaria and decides to move to. The Lutheran mission stayed on in Finschhafen and expanded its influence along coastal villages. 1900 Deutsche Neue Guinea Company land acquisition in Lae. 1907 Leigh War raid villages at Lae and Labu. 1909 Stephen Lenner and Dr. Neuhaus visit Leigh War to establish peace among the warring tribes. 1910 1110 Lutheran mission stations, including Lae and Gabmedzung among the Leigh War were established. 1913 Bergberg gazetted as a patrol post. Morobe was still a German government outpost. 1914 Australian military occupation of former German New Guinea as a result of the outbreak of World War I. 1921 to 1925 Civil administration restored in New Guinea as an Australian-mandated territory for the League of Nations. 1926 Gold is discovered in Eddy Creek, near War. There was a gold rush. Salamaua becomes a port of call for all activities relating to war goldfields. 1937 Lae becomes the capital of New Guinea, replacing Rabaul. 1942 Japanese bomb Lae, Salamaua and Bololo on the 21st of January. Japanese land in Lae on 8 March, 1942 to 1945. War arrives in New Guinea and there is a military administration in the territory. The administration was referred to by NGAU, which stands for Australian New Guinea Administrative Unit. 1943. Following the losses in Buna and Kokoda Trail, the Japanese fall back to Lae. 1945 to 1950. Slow recovery of the territory. 1950 to 1975. Period of rapid expansion in the territory. 1960s. Lutheran Church goes into business, launching Lutheran shipping and Namasu. 1964. First House of Assembly election. 1975. Political independence. German New Guinea. The largest part of northeastern New Guinea in German New Guinea is called Kaiser Wilhelmsland, named in honor of Wilhelm II, the German Emperor and King of Prussia. From 1884 until 1918, the territory was a protectorate of the German Empire. The coastline of the northern and eastern portions of New Guinea had been charted by navigators in the early 17th century, and the visible mountain ranges named by British Admiralty navigators later in the century. Most German surveying efforts had focused on coastal regions and river basins, where Germans had established plantations. The boundary between Papua and Kaiser Wilhelmsland had been established by a joint British-German expedition in 1909. The interior had not been mapped. Since then, Papuan gold prospectors had crossed into German territory, which, for the German perspective, made the accuracy of the border essential. 1870 to 1880. The first European to spend any length of time in Morobe was Russian biologist Nikolai Miklohomokle. He arrived at Astrolabe Bay, south of the present site of Madang, in 1871 and stayed for 15 months before leaving to regain his health. 1874. John Moresby on HMS Basilisk sails along Huon Gulf and names Parsi Point, the Markham, Rawlinson Ranges, and explores around the Markham mouth and meet up with people along the coast who, according to him, seem to have met white men before. In the 1870s and 1880s, German commercial firms began to site trading stations in New Guinea. Agents of J.C. Godefroy and Ampson reached the Bismarck Archipelago from the Caroline Islands in 1872. In 1875, Hersheimer Amp Company moved to the archipelago. In 1884, the German New Guinea Company was founded in Berlin by Adolf von Hansemann, Dr. Otto Finch and a syndicate of German bankers for the purpose of colonizing and exploiting resources on New Guinea, where German interest grew after British Queensland's annexation of part of eastern New Guinea. Von Hansemann's task was to select land for plantation development on the northeast coast of New Guinea and establish trading posts. Its influence soon grew to encompass the entire northeastern part of New Guinea and some of the islands off the coast. Most of the German settlers to Kaiser Wilhelmsland were plantation owners, miners, and government functionaries, and the number of European settlers, including non-Germans, was never very high. On the 19th of August 1884, Chancellor Bismarck ordered the establishment of a German protectorate in the New Britain archipelago and northeastern New Guinea. In 1885 and 1887, Johann Field established missionary stations in Simbang and Timber Island. After malaria epidemics in 1889 and again in 1891 killed almost half of the European settlers on the coast in Finschhafen, many of the Europeans moved toward Friedrich Wilhelm Schaefen. Field established a mission station at Sattleburg, 700 meters in the highlands. In 1890 and 1891, he built the Sattleburg mission station there and constructed a road approximately 24 kilometers between the station and the Finch harbor. which cut the traveling time from 3 days to 5 hours. In 1885, Lutheran and Catholic congregations sent clergy to establish missions, who experienced moderate, but very slow, success with the indigenous peoples. Missionaries and plantation owners alike were limited by tropical diseases, travel and communication barriers. German colonial rule in New Guinea lasted for a period of 30 years. For the first 15 years the colony was administered under imperial charters by a private company, in the manner of the old British and Dutch East India Company. From 1899 to 1914, the imperial government administered German New Guinea through a governor, who was assisted after 1904 by a nominated government council. When the imperial government took over the running of the colony in 1899, its overriding objective was rapid economic development, based on a German-controlled plantation economy. In April 1911, Dr. Wegner, director of the Meteorological Observatory in Apia, stated he was on his way to German New Guinea, to make preliminary arrangements for a series of journeys by balloon across the mainland, the purpose of which was to make aerial surveys. In late 1913, the Imperial Colonial Office appointed Herman Detzner to lead an expedition to survey the border between the British Protectorate, called Papua, and the German territory, and to survey and map the interior. Detzner, an Austrian, was a military surveyor. The expedition set off along the Lanjimar-Wartud Divide, and travelled by raft down the Wartud River to its junction with the Markham River, and on to the Lutheran mission station at Gabmadzung. 1914 to 1918. On the 4th of August 1914, Britain declared war on Germany. As World War I spread to the Pacific, Australian troops invaded Germany New Guinea, taking the German barracks in Herbertshoe and forcing the defending German colonial troops to capitulate on the 21st of September after the defeat at Bitapaka. On the 6th of August 1914, residents of the Protectorate were notified by proclamation that a state of war existed between Germany and England, France and Russia. During this time Detzner continued surveying and avoiding Allied forces. On the 11th of November 1918, Detzner was advised that the war had ended and surrendered himself at Finschhafen, complete with sword and sun helmet. He was interned at Sydney and returned to Germany. Under German New Guinea, powerful wireless stations were constructed at strategic points in the Pacific, including Yap, Nauru, Samoa, and at Bitapaka, in German New Guinea. The German Protectorate was overrun by British-Australian troops. In 1918, as part of the settlements ending World War I, Kaiser Wilhelmsland was administered by the Commonwealth of Australia, a British dominion. 1920 to 1945. In 1918, Kaiser Wilhelmsland and the other territories that comprised German New Guinea were administered by the Commonwealth of Australia. Beginning in 1920, Australia, under a mandate from the League of Nations, governed the former German territory of New Guinea. It was administered under this mandate until the Japanese invasion in December 1941. Most of the territory of New Guinea was occupied by Japanese forces before recapture during the final months of the war in the Australian-American New Guinea campaign. District officers and patrol officers, known as KIAPs, provided administrative functions as a one-man representative of the government, taking on policing and judicial roles as well as more mundane tasks as completing censuses. The KIAPs were commissioned as officers of the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary and magistrates. Patrol posts were established in populated areas around the province. The former German administrative centre, Adolf Haven, was renamed the Morobe Patrol Post, and a sub-district headquarters established in Kaya Sharpie and Cane-Into and district headquarters established in Lae, and patrol posts established in Wantot and other areas in the province. During the 1960s, the Kayak became more like a magistrate, moving away from law enforcement. List of Morobe patrols. World War II. Morobe Province was a key campaign site during World War II. The Japanese had established strong supply bases in the towns of Lae and Salamaua in 1942. The Salamaua-Lae campaign of the following year was a series of actions in which the Australian and United States forces sought to capture the two Japanese bases. The campaign to take the area began with the Australian attack on Japanese positions near Mubo on the 22nd of April 1943 and ended with the fall of Lae on September 16, 1943 in Operation Poston. The campaign was notable not only for its classic defense maneuvers at the landing at Nadsab and the brutal hand-to-hand combat at Salamaua. Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th President of the United States, saw his sole 13 minutes of combat on a bombing mission over Lae. Although the plane he was supposed to fly was shot down, with no survivors, his flight in B-26 Marauder had repercussions throughout the Pacific Theater. Sent as an observer, with instructions to report up the line to Roosevelt, to Congress, and to the Navy brass that the conditions in the Pacific were deplorable. The men had third-rate equipment to fight Japan's first-class planes. The effort needed another 6,800 trained and experienced men, plus better supplies, provisions, and generally a higher priority in the war effort. The Leigh War Cemetery is located adjacent to the Botanical Gardens in the center of the city of Lae. The cemetery was begun in 1944 by the Australian Army Graves Services, and the Commonwealth Graves Commission assumed responsibility for it in 1947. The Lae Memorial commemorates 300 men of the Australian forces who lost their lives and have no known grave. It contains 2300–2800 burials, of which 444 are unidentified. After the World War II, Morobe Province was in a neglected state, with the main economic activity being the collection and sale of war disposal equipment. The expatriate population looked at expanding the agricultural sector. The Australian Minister of Territories was Mr. Eddie Ward, who refused to allow any land purchases. Following a change of government, Mr. Percy Spender changed this policy, and with the introduction of the ex-servicemen's credit scheme, which resulted in a significant increase in agricultural activity through all of the country. In 1970, mineral exports were a mere 1% of total exports. Within 2 years, this figure had risen to 55%. Ecology. Papua New Guinea is part of the Australasia ecozone. Through ecotourism, the province capitalizes on its spectacular scenery, readily accessible diving locales, and its mountains and jungles to offer tourists rich experiences in coral reef, rainforest, subalpine and alpine and tropical habitats. The province's jungles and forests are also popular for viewing over 1,000 of species of birds and mammals, including the colorful emperor bird of paradise, the flightless cassowary, and varieties of macropods, including the tree kangaroo, and over 15,000 species of plants. The Huon Peninsula, which comprises most of the provincial landmass, is a unique montane ecoregion that offers a variety of plants and conditions found nowhere else in the world. Its coral reefs and volcanic inlets are home to thousands of species of fish and oceanic life that thrive in the reefs and wrecks. In 2009, the Yas Conservation Area has been established in the northern part of the Huon Peninsula. Yas stretches over 760 square kilometers and includes 3 rivers, Yopno, Urufa and Som, after which it was named. It is a critical habitat for the endangered endangered Matschie's tree kangaroo. Economy. Morobe Province's economy has grown at the rate of approximately 2% per annum since 2006. The economic base of the Morobe Province depends on the production and harvesting of cocoa, coffee, copra and sugar, and tropical fruits. Oil and gas industries are emerging, as is new mining and energy industry. Deteriorating roads and the lack of manufacturing and transportation communication infrastructure impedes economic development. Mining. The Hidden Valley Mine is a gold and silver mine was built by Harmony Gold from South Africa over 2006 to mid-2009, with Newcrest Mining from Australia buying into the project in mid-2008 to form the Morobe Mining Joint Venture or MMJV. The MMJV operates the Hidden Valley Mine and all exploration work on MMJV tenements, which includes the large Wafi-Golpu copper-gold deposit. Demographics. The relative youth of the Morobe Province population puts an increasing strain on schools and education services to combat illiteracy and its accompanying problems. 8% of the population depend on 20% of the population for economic support, and population continues to grow at about 2.8% per year, which is higher than other developing countries. Languages. The population of Morobe speak over 100 languages, representing 27 language families. During the 20th century, two well-studied local languages, Kate and Yabum, were used for the purposes of evangelization by the Lutheran Church, based in Finschhafen. In theory, Kate was intended for use in the mountainous hinterlands, where Papuan languages are spoken, and Yabum in coastal and lowland areas, particularly along the coast and in the Markham Valley, where speakers of the Austronesian family of languages predominate. However, in some inland areas such as War, both Kate and Yabum were introduced by mission groups coming from different directions. Today, English, and especially Pidgin English, are the common urban languages in Lae government. The province sends 9 members to the national parliament, and has 14 members of the Tutumang, the provincial assembly. Tutumang means the coming together, and the province maintains that name for its assembly, as is permitted under the organic law on provincial government and local government. Since the 2012 national election, the Morobe governor has been Kalinaru. Districts and LLGs. Each province in Papua New Guinea has one or more districts, and each district has one or more local-level government areas. For census purposes, the LLG areas are subdivided into wards and those into census units.